Welcome back, everyone. What an amazing morning already. Let's keep this going. We're really pleased today to introduce you to our next session, establishing the E2E content flow tech ecosystem, must have to win an Omni-commerce with Lizbeth James. Lizbeth is the CoE Head of Digital Transformation at Mars Petcare. And Lizbeth, that is an amazing title I've never heard before. So you're going to have to at least start with telling me what CoE is with this. So as always, send your questions in the Q&A tab throughout the session. Chat away, chat away, chat away. We love all the chatting. And Lizbeth, before we start, what is CoE?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Hello, Neil. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Center of Excellence. So the idea
Center of Excellence.
Exactly. So the idea is, we as a team, we don't necessarily think e-com as a separate thing or Omni as a separate thing. Instead, the marketplace is changing, it's digitization, right? So how do we support the enterprise at a centralized format so that every function is benefit from the digital transformation? So that's the story.
I love this.
Center of Excellence.
And I'm putting that one in my book of amazing titles I've heard now. So that one's going in my new book. All right, Elizabeth, over to you.
Thank you so much, Neil. Hello, everyone. Once again, I'm so excited to be here today and be part of this event. I have been actually watching most of the sessions so far, and this is like an amazing place to learn and kind of grow over time. So let's get to it. So the topic today is establishing end-to-end content flow tech ecosystem. So this is a must-to-have to win in Omni-commerce. And that's the connection, because every company kind of know that it's important for us to have tech ecosystem. And over time in years, like especially in CPG, we focused on having the best enterprise systems, best DAM or MarTech system separately, and then product information management system separately. But in today's world, when things are omni, your customers, which is your retailers, are omni, they are all moving towards a centralized ways of working. So in that scenario, what is that? How will we interconnect all these different ports or modules of transformation? So that's absolutely important for us to win the speed to market. So let's just quickly look into the agenda for the day. So we have about 30 minutes, I believe. I'll try to wrap up our session in about 20 so that you have enough time for questions, because I always like getting more questions and comments on the content that actually help my personal growth. So I'll definitely keep some time for that. So the agenda for the day, we are actually looking at importance of seamless tech infrastructure. So just like how I said, why it is more important than any time in the past, right? Like why this is so important. And if we don't do it right now, and as things change further, it gets so difficult for us to work on. So we will just look into what that looks like. How Omni-commerce connects with wider master data management platform, product information management platform, which is PIM, product experience management platform. So these are some integrated platforms come into the market lately to kind of make the brand's life easier. And then of course the digital assets management platform. And I'm sure that all of you are very familiar with it. And now you actually see most of the DAMs are being part of many of the other type of tech infrastructure, which I just mentioned. And then MarTech, all in all. I'm sure DAM is part of the MarTech, but I just want to kind of call that out separately so that how that transition of the content moves through that is better explained. And then the third section will be inflexible CPG legacy infrastructure. And I'm pretty sure most of you are watching this over from CPG, you all agree with me. If you're working for a company which had been around over 100 years, the number of legacy systems in the company in different functions it's inflexible. That's the word for it. So how do we navigate around that and then deliver what is expected for the future? The role of decision leadership continuity in strategic enterprise alignment. And this is very, very critical. And finally, we will quickly look into agile ports to drive implementation and what that looks like. All right, so the first section is about importance of seamless tech infrastructure. And here I wanted to start with why DAM is a very important compared to every other platform, because today's consumer demands rich digital experience. And it's gone beyond, like any of the product information management platform you take, you cannot probably save a format in Illustrator, but now things are way beyond that. I personally don't want to use the word generative AI because I'm sure someone is counting the number of times people are going to talk about generative AI in these sessions today. But ultimately, that had been happening for a long time. So complex files with high color accuracy and resolution. Every retailer demands metadata-driven quality, customized content to support their tech stack, not necessarily internally brand tech stack, integrated workflow for approvals and simplified content flow, and data and analytics, because today everything is about real-time data measurement, change of plans, and change of all the budget is literally defined based on your data analytics. So especially to understand the impact of investment behind the content and learn and improve for further optimization. So if you have to really kind of track and bring all of this, you definitely need to have a very clear, seamless tech infrastructure. Otherwise, you do not have the time to kind of go in and figure things out as we go and, like waste the time, because speed to market is key. And throughout the presentation, you will see that as a constant theme, because speed to market is what we are talking about. Everything is real time and speed to market. That's where we are going towards. So whether it is item setup, content delivery, maintenance, and anybody who's working in e-com and the new world of retail digital media, the speed at which you need to actually keep moving, and the different attributions and the different attributes in a form. Like Amazon forms are like anywhere from over 100 different properties you have to fill from different platforms, which we will get to in the next slide. And then, of course, in the RDM world, the number of different, iterations you need for a project, or say, for example, adaptations you need in the creative elements, it's quite complex and expected to be real time. So simplified tech stack fundamentals to be successful in Omni-commerce, being agile and flexible in implementation to keep up with the market and the retailer changes, internal upskilling and change management protocols to drive speed. This is a very important part, because most of the time what really happens is you can bring in change management protocols, but ultimately, if it is not implemented right with the right upskilling, none of these projects are going to come to life and become successful. So let's just look at how Omni-commerce connects with wider master data management, PIM, PXM, DAM, and MarTech. So it's interesting that when you talk to, when you internally share these different projects, the majority of the time, if your leadership has happened to be traditional, they never really understand. You're talking e-commerce and you're talking about a whole tech infrastructure to be changed to make your e-commerce work. Like, why? So the reason behind that is, if you really look at it, your enterprise systems, which is MDP, ERP, ingredients, R&D portal, if you're in the food business, it's quite complex in that world. And for each of your category, that varies, like based on your area of work, but that's a very important set of systems which sits there. Your marketing content requires the original content is first you need to develop, get all the right set of approvals, and that's when it actually goes for the adaptations, right? So all of these individual systems, for a bigger company, if it is had been around for a longer time, there may be at least 10 or 12 systems you will see in this entire space. And you're expected to have data coming from all of those different systems, lots of duplication and kind of streamlining. So imagine the amount of complexity there. And then you need to kind of create a customized approval workflow, because based on your category, based on your segment you're working, the stakeholders who needs to approve the workflow is quite complex again. So make that work. And then align against the content and image strategy, the company is actually defining as best in class. Customize the content for each retailer and the brand websites, like all the final destination where the content is going to go, you have to customize it. Now, I wanted to bring in the element of media strategy, creative development, and adaptation. This is for both brand media and retail media. And even in retail media, even shopper marketing, ideally, all the creative has to be centralized. And that's such a big challenge right now, and DAM plays a very, very important role in that piece. And now once you have everything customized for e-commerce related content and for your brand media related content, it has to go for one more final approval workflow with this various stakeholders. And then finally, there are many aggregator platforms available in the market now, but still identifying and avoiding duplication and kind of really bringing it to that single source of truth, right? Like whether it's a combination of product information management plus DAM or an experience management platform plus DAM. And in the future, it's all about supply experience management platform, which kind of takes over some of the enterprise systems and PXM and DAM, or DAM being part of it, or will there be a single platform in the future, like to make all our lives easier and at the same time it's flexible, easy to kind of plug and play? Probably, but definitely we are not there yet. So once you define what is your single source of truth, and that's actually somewhere here in this pillar, and then you define syndication and management, which is retailer APIs. Okay, is there an opportunity for us to connect through an API? Can I syndicate through my own website? So all of that has to be defined. Bringing in the MarTech tools further in terms of campaign management and CRM management and all of that, integration of experience and commerce. So this is like the world we are talking in, and bringing this to life is what actually make Omni-commerce a success for big CPGs. Let's move on. So is that something easy for us to do? Probably not. Like why? I found this analysis by BCG quite interesting, and this is a really good article I read a while ago. So CPG companies face two seemingly conflicting priorities. So this is how the industry had been thinking about digital transformation. One is this huge ERP system organization, and the other is digital transformation imperative, which is kind of standalone, or something which is on its own. So so what that really means is, so if you cannot really think about one or the other. And if you start solving smaller problems, smaller portions of problems, I totally agree that's the way to go, but you still need to have a vision. And for the vision, you have to probably touch your ERP system. There's no way you can actually have one or the other. So what is the best way for a CPG to impact and influence and change the legacy infrastructure? So the first point of disconnect is the business and the technology leadership. The tech not necessarily understand what business wants. And I'm sure that this is one of the common problems across every project which is coming to life. But in this case, it's more. So the business has to really explain what does that end state look like for the tech. And the tech has to be at least one or two people in the tech leadership should really understand how that business influence in the tech world. So that connect is extremely important. And then another misunderstanding or the dilemma by most of the companies are like, we think, okay, for e-com, let's find a solution. Let's have a small module. Let's have a transformation project. And then completely forgetting the fact that in-store or Omni, as Omni we call, is actually part of this change. It's not something standalone. So if you just focus on your e-com solutions, then you're really leaving out the rest of the importance of the business. And when the marketplace changes, you're far behind. And the third is, of course, change management and team upskilling. So these are the things we need to keep in mind when you really think about that legacy infrastructure and how to transition that. And one very, very important aspect there is, like, if you really look into it, the role of decision, leadership continuity. So the importance of continuity. So I want to quickly talk about what Jonathan and Barry here in one of the Harvard Business Review, they wrote this really cool article about interdependent components that make up a strategically aligned enterprise. So you define your purpose, you define the business strategy from the purpose, then you identify the capability requirements. And then from there, you're going into this resource architecture, right? Like organization capability. How well do our resources enable development of our required organizational capability? And then you define your management systems to drive the performance of our valuable resources. Now, something like this can keep changing. So for instance, if you start a project in the traditional way, there will be phases of the project. You come to a minimum viable product, and then you wait for a year, and the next project is coming in and kind of connect back into this project and try to deliver something bigger. But the market has changed by then. Most of the systems you have identified or platforms you have defined, the versions have changed and it's moved on. The marketplace has changed where you need to provide the delivery, they have moved on. So the challenge is, especially when you take on a huge project like this, what does that timeline looks like? How soon you will actually deliver the project? It plays a very important role. And when you're planning that, and if your leadership is actually changing, there's an org restructure happening or a change of leadership happening, then what really happens is, the new leadership will take time to kind of understand, or probably they have a very different vision to kind of move forward with, or this will get deprioritized, and ultimately it's lost years for the company. So if there is a project which came to life halfway and then it kind of got shelved, so automatically lost dollars and lost years for the company, and then someone else will come and try to transform this. So the importance of educating the C-suite, influence and explain that a project this big is coming into the system, and these are the advantages, that is predominantly determine the success of the implementation. And the second part of that is, I think all the tools and platforms, I'm sure a lot of you are here from the tools background. So ideally, it should be more flexible so that even though versionings are coming, there should be a way you can actually plug and play rather than having to change the entire platform or go behind something bigger, better. So I think if we can manage to define these two parts, it's the success of the project can be really, really positive. So what would I recommend, right? Like, I'm sure all of you are familiar with agile methodology, and I'm pretty sure like most of our tech projects are usually driven using agile. But the question here is, even though there's a traditional formal agile agile ways of working, I think for the business, for the CPG, what makes best for the company? And based on that, you have to create your agile pods and define your MVP. So leveraging agile pod structure with a variety of competencies is the key. Delivering using agile Scrum framework, but at the same time, customize it for what you're actually trying to deliver. Agile pods are formed of 3 to 9% teams. That's kind of the best way to deliver it and bring things to life for single task and managing parts of the backlog. Autonomous, cross-functional, highly adaptable teams that provide a flexible approach to problem solving. And I think this kind of approach can actually bring a project to life. Having a very clear vision identified with the leadership, defining the timeline to get there, defining the opportunity to adapt and adjust with that infrastructure is probably what will actually help us get there. And to be successful in e-com, or to be successful in proper marketing in today's world, next-gen marketing, you have to have an internal infrastructure which seamlessly talk to each other. If you continue to do in bits and pieces, it's extremely difficult for you to kind of deliver what you're expecting to deliver. So with that, I wanted to kind of give 2 sets of takeaways, one for brands and one for agencies and tool owners. For brands, I mean, there's a very interesting picture, and I'm sure anybody who is in CPG right now in tech and transformation or e-com, all of you can totally relate to me here that lots of band-aids and Frankenstein models, right? Like we are literally building things, and then, okay, there is a gap here. Let's get a full-time employee there. And then that's something working. Okay, there's another gap here. Let's bring an agency here, and they will help you solve for it. And then, so it just keeps happening. And I totally understand you may not have the dollars to go all in, or you may not have the alignment, but even though you are starting there, have a clear vision and leadership alignment on where we should ideally be and how that execution timeline and result looks like. And this will actually help you to really really set expectations right with leadership. So it's not like, okay, I'm doing this project and this MVP is out and things are good, and 2 years later, there's a new team come and they're like, oh, nothing is actually working. How do we fix it? And then we realize, okay, these are the band-aids we have put in the structure. So how do we get past that and really go all in and define what's the future state looks like. For agencies and tool owners, simplify the solution. Start with how the end will look for brands. I think that is the whole point. Like, understand their challenges and problems and really define and explain what that end looks like. You can show scenarios, share benchmark analytics, how success looks like. Once you implement this, this is the percentage increase of your delivery in CRM or whatnot. Like, define a KPI and explain what that benchmark analytics looks like. Support brand to navigate through internal tech and alignment challenges. So this is where actually leaders like me struggle the most, because most of the time when you talk to your internal leadership or to the other cross-functional teams, it's very difficult for you to translate what you're trying to explain. And if you can provide additional information, additional case studies to kind of really bring it down to that right language, that will really help and take the projects further and help us to like bring those tools into the system faster. And bring together other tools, even if it's not your company. Like, if you really think that this is a seamless solution I can provide, probably I just need to kind of work with another partner to bring that in. Please do recommend, because at the end of the day, this is the kind of event where we are trying to build the industry and the category up. So bring together other tools, even if it's not your company, and if that can provide a seamless solution. Okay, so as I promised, we have about 9 minutes left, and I would love to take more questions. And if you wish to write to me, this is my ID I use for all the speaking event communications. So please do write to me, and I'll be super excited to engage and talk and discuss more about all of this different topic.
Well, excellent, Lizbeth. Thank you so much for such a great presentation. There's a lot of really excellent nuggets in there for everybody to do. So as everybody can see your email, please grab that now. And Lizbeth, why don't you then take your screen share off and we can get to some of the questions. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right. A couple of things came to mind as we were going through that. Let's start with some fundamentals, basic steps. What are some of the first things that you should be looking at when you're taking on such a transformational project?
Okay, so usually what happens is, that's a great question. Thanks, Neil. So usually what happens is we go all in and kind of really define, okay, what does the future state looks like and how we can get there, and then you start building it. In my opinion, we should start first with people currently doing this role in different capacity, right? Like, it could be a contractor who is sitting in one part of the business in one market doing the job, like just to start on one area of work. Or it can be an agency we are leveraging. So start with the junior folks who are actually doing and executing the work instead of going behind a future vision based on a marketing understanding. So understand what's really happening, like who is editing what Excel sheet at what capacity, who is copying which row to which row, and why is it taking so long. So I think that is where you have to start, and take as many interviews as possible to really understand how currently things are coming to life. And that could be a really awesome starting point. And from there, you can actually look at what are the options available in the market. And from there, you can define your vision and what are the tech stack you need to get there to make it successful.
Yeah, Elizabeth, what you said it rings so true. I remember one of the best stories ever doing some work in consulting was doing that discovery process and talking to one person, and they showed us how they check marked this box in their system. And we said, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "I don't know. I was trained to do that." And then 6 people later down the road, we watched somebody uncheck that exact same checkbox. And we said, "Well, why do you do that?" And they said, "I don't know. I was always told to uncheck it." It was always like, and it was like, wait, does anybody realize what is happening here along the way? How many times does this happen, especially as people transition, right? Roles or change out roles and the way that they're trained. So it's so important. With that, you talked a lot about upskilling, which is great. At what point in the transformation should you start that at an enterprise level beyond even like your core team? Talk a little bit about that, would you?
Yeah, so I mean, that's really going to connect back to the initial question you asked me about the center of excellence. So in the world of e-com and Omni, we try to define market maturity and your company's maturity. So based on, there's actually a really good article in Profiter. I forgot the lady who wrote the article. It's all about different maturity levels and different market maturity levels. And it's very, very important for you to decide, do you need a centralized model? Do you need a decentralized model? Or do you need a hybrid model? And at what capacity, at what point you should actually transition from your centralized model to decentralized model, and or should we stay in that hybrid model? So take your market maturity against your category, and then track that against your current company's maturity. And that's when you clearly know, is this something ready to go further out into the respective functions? So I'll give you an example. So for instance, if your business is still majority of the day to day with your working with your retailer, or say, for example, with your media planning, is still focusing on a traditional ways of working, then you may be too immature to make it decentralized and going all the way into enterprise. Because the problem is, these are like things which are developing for the future. And most of the time it gets, deprioritized, and it goes under the carpet, and it'll actually create and come back as a centralized requirement in the future. So ideally, you should decentralize only when you clearly know this person has the capacity to take on, have the ability and already upskilled to take on that role, and then you be in the business and learn. So there should be a fundamental learning before the transition completely moves on. Usually the vision is, okay, you can upskill on the job, but it's very tough in this infrastructure because there's a lot of technical knowledge you need. There's a lot of understanding you need. So it's better for that person to come to like halfway, and that's when you start doing the decentralization. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Michelle asked about this. She says, I appreciate you mentioning team upskilling multiple times, as we all did. Can you talk more about your team, maybe a little bit about some sizes or roles, skill sets, and where do you see, generally, how do you then assess and then say, okay, here's some upskilling to do that, where you can't talk about that, of course.
So it totally depends on the tech infrastructure you're bringing in. So it all starts with the tools and the tools, protocols and management. So that's actually one area. You have to get absolutely comfortable with the new tools or the new processes. Second, of course, defining the right processes and handover points. So if you kind of really define, okay, this is process A will actually take me to this point, then defining that entire handover model. Okay, this person would need this additional skill set to support that handover and completion of the project. So I would say it all starts with the tech stack you're selecting and being an expert in that tech stack and making sure the team is comfortable using that tech stack. And then a second, it actually delivers the business need. And then the second is, of course, the processes, which will actually help you get there.
Great. Well, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Lizbeth, for joining us today. What a fantastic presentation. And for those who are going to be joining us later, what a great recording too. I think I'll be watching this one a couple of times for some good tips along the way. Now some time for everybody else. Grab a coffee. The Birds of a Feather Lounge discussions are going to be joining or opening very soon. So go ahead and take a seat at the virtual table in the lounge tab that you'll see to chat with fellow attendees. Tables are first come, first served, so get there quickly. And then don't forget to visit the exhibition, see how the sponsors, just like as Elizabeth talked about, because they're a really key part of this transformation, right? Is the actual technology that you're using and the upskilling that's needed to use them, to use those technologies properly. Something I think people forget a lot about, right, is when you select a technology partner, you have to actually upskill with it, just like that partner does. As they continue to develop their systems. So visit them and see how sponsors can help you with your DEM. Elizabeth, thank you so much. It was such a pleasure to meet you today.
Thanks, Neil, and thanks everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Thank you. Bye.